That jump scared my ears.
We'll just give everybody a couple minutes to make their way in here.
Yes.
Hmm. I like your animal pics in the background there, Bug.
Thank you. They're my random posters. They were from National Geographic. What are they called? Magazines.
You know, that antiquated reading material known as magazines.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is that antique media source again?
So, lovely weather we're having.
I was just
Have you
gonna
seen
say
those?
that.
Have you seen those gas prices lately?
Ah, they're crazy. I don't know. I don't drive. Oh my, there's so many people in here, and they
Yeah, we
keep
had 45 registered.
increasing.
Just don't look.
There's so many people.
Sheree, I'm going to make you co-host too.
Okay, yeah, sounds good.
Hello, Shreya.
Hi, how's it going?
Good, good.
Are you excited?
Oh, so excited.
Okay, waiting room is empty.
All right. Well, hello, everyone, and thank you for joining the Gender Equality Coalition of Ontario speaker series. This evening, we're here to listen to the Queer Youth panel, and I'm going to start things off with our land acknowledgement. Bear with me. We acknowledge that we gather, organize, and build community on Indigenous land stewarded since time immemorial by the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabeg, the Anishinaabe, the Attawandarong, and the Mississauga Nation. Today, this land is governed by ongoing treaty relationships, including Treaty 2, Treaty 6, the Longwoods Treaty, and Treaty 29. We honor the sovereignty of the Chippewas of the Thames First Nation, Munsee Delaware Nation, and Oneida Nation on the Thames, and recognize that these nations continue to protect their cultures, communities, and lands despite generations of colonial harm. We also honor the Dish and One Spoon Wampum Covenant, which teaches that all who share this territory have a responsibility to care for the land and water together, taking only what we need, ensuring that there is enough for future generations, and upholding relationships grounded in respect rather than domination. These teachings reflect the gender balance, gender diversity, and collective responsibility that had existed here long before colonization imposed patriarchal systems that continue to harm Indigenous women, girls, Two Spirits, trans, and gender diverse people. Colonization disrupted these systems of reciprocity, responsibility, and gender sovereignty. Today, Indigenous women are approximately 3 times more likely to experience violent victimization, and 60% have experienced physical or sexual assault. These realities are not accidents. They are a result of systemic racism, sexism, homophobia, and transphobia embedded in colonial structures. Water injustice is a part of this ongoing harm. Communities such as the Neskantaga First Nations, which has endured one of the longest boil water advisories in Canadian history, continue to face violations of basic human rights. Even locally, Indigenous families experience water insecurity. This is a powerful reminder that there can be no gender equality without water sovereignty, land sovereignty, and the protection of Indigenous rights. Here in Ontario, Indigenous peoples continue to lead, resist, teach, and heal. Their knowledge strengthens all of us, and justice requires that we follow their leadership. We pledge to stand with Indigenous communities and resist alongside them. As the Gender Equality Coalition of Ontario, we commit to standing against gender-based violence and naming its colonial roots, supporting Indigenous-led healing and justice initiatives and listening when Indigenous communities tell us what they need, advocating for clean water, land protection, and environmental justice, recognizing these as essential to gender equity, creating safer, inclusive spaces for Indigenous youth, especially Two-Spirit and gender-diverse youth, to learn, lead, and thrive, challenging colonial systems that create inequities in housing, healthcare, education, policing, and child welfare, educating ourselves and our communities about truths deliberately excluded from mainstream narratives, including pre-colonial gender diversity, sovereignty, and balanced governance systems. This acknowledgement is not a script. It is a commitment to action, to honor the treaties and covenants, to protect land and water, to stand with Indigenous people, to preserve gender justice and community care, and to building relationships rooted in accountability, solidarity, and hope. So it's time to meet our panel. We welcome Bugg. Bugg is a huge nerd and activist for trans and queer rights. They love volunteering and have volunteered with Earth Rangers, Rainbow Connections, the Central Community Health Center, Amylaid, and more. They are going to University of Guelph for biomedical sciences in September and hope to be a wildlife veterinarian. As a non-binary queer youth, Bugg is very excited for the speaker series. Hi, Bugg. Next
Hi,
up,
I'm Bug.
Hi. Next up, we welcome Eric Pettit. Eric is 27 years old. He was born in New Hampshire in the United States, but moved to Canada in August of 2025. Eric has been out of the closet since he was 13 years old in 2014. He cares deeply about issues affecting the LGBTQIA+ community and has worked in gay straight alliances and DEI inclusion programs. Eric has a love for art and theater. He appreciates when people get to express themselves creatively. Eric has 2 degrees from the United States in early childhood education and special education, and he's working towards his diploma in ECE at Fanshawe College here in Canada. Welcome, Eric.
Hey. Good to be here.
We'd like to say hello to Brody Bartlett. Brody is in his second year at Fanshawe. He graduated from East Elgin and had to find his way in a small town that was not at all welcoming. But we welcome you here tonight, Brody. Thanks for joining us.
Hello.
And last but certainly not least, we have Samuel Rokas. Sammie's role is a speaker/advocate. He's a grade 10 student who loves social justice and the outdoors. And I'd like to add that he's also a pretty stellar musician and singer. Welcome,
Thank you.
Sammie.
Hi.
And my name is Ruthie Crocker. I'll be your moderator this evening. During the day, I'm the administrative assistant for the Gender Equality Coalition of Ontario. And in the afternoon, I oversee the Rainbow Connections Hub in downtown St. Thomas. I'm also the Rainbow Connections program coordinator for Queer Club for Youth in St. Thomas on Tuesday evenings. I believe that positive growth doesn't come from shame, and I'm excited to get this ball rolling. All right, so for our first question, we have a standard question for all GECO speaker series, and that's, what does gender justice mean to you? Bugg, would you mind starting us off?
Hey guys. Gender justice means to me just like being able to overcome gender discrimination and to like prevent and hopefully end the barriers that prevent trans people and gender diverse people from thriving. Like unnecessary gender topics like sports and awards.
All right, thank you. Sammie, would you like to go next?
Yeah. I really think like gender justice is about like ensuring that everybody gets equal treatment no matter what their gender identity is. Like I think everybody deserves fair chance, fair opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. Brody, what about you? What does gender justice mean to you?
I think gender justice to me is making sure that you feel and have the opportunity to be heard and feel safe in the community that you happen to be in, not just that you have to strive to look for a community that you can feel safe and can feel accepted in. Gender justice is more about the fact that anybody in any community can feel like they can be safe and heard from others. and especially having equal opportunities like everybody else to do things that they want to do and not feeling like they are excluded from being in social or maybe even academic or work situations just because of the way they are.
Yeah, well said. And Eric, what do you think? What does gender justice
So,
mean to you?
gender justice means that everyone gets to identify as themselves. People are allowed to use the bathrooms of the gender that they identify as. It's about breaking down those barriers of societal norms and expectations for gender. We need to make the processes for women and gender diverse people more accessible. For example, providing gender affirming care and having equal pay for women. We also should not be having any gender-based violence. People should really be trying to solve their problems using their own words and not through violence.
Great, perfect. I like that you all touched on something a little different. Thank you for that. Um, let's ask a query next. What does being queer mean to you personally? And Sammie, can we start with you this time?
Yeah. To me, queerness is hard to define because it's just like for me it's this thing that I just intrinsically am. I am queer. I wouldn't be who I am without my queerness. Like
Yeah,
I built my own identity and just like being me, like it just feels like me. Like it's hard to describe it basically.
no, I understand that. It's a part of who you are. Yeah,
Mhm.
for sure. Brody, what about you? What
I
does
would
being queer mean to you personally? Sorry.
I would agree with what Sammy said in the sense that being queer is can be very hard to define because it's just who you are as a person, and I think queerness goes a lot further than simply just your sexuality or the people you're interested in. I think queerness has sort of always been and had a culture of its own and sort of a diverse community within just the concept of being queer or just the idea of being queer. Like no one queer person is going to be exactly the same as another. And I think that being queer as it is, like I said, is not just about your sexuality, but it is just overall who you are as a person and the things you choose to do and the people you choose to interact with. And it shapes a lot of aspects of your life.
Yeah, for sure. Like it's not just a stereotype of like cookie cutter
Hmm.
um, descriptions or things like that. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. And Eric, what about you?
So for me, being queer means that I am a part of the 2S LGBTQIA plus community. It means that I am confident in who I am and who I love. I strive for people being treated equally and accepted. Um, Again, everyone should have equal rights. And it means that I get to be myself and I'm a part of a community that understands the struggles of coming out and being gay and there's a whole history and a movement that it's important to understand and we want to make sure that we're helping educate people on using the correct pronouns and helping people feel welcome and safe.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. I like that you mentioned that it's like a community as well. That's nice. Thank you. And Bug, can you round us off?
Hey guys, sorry. Being queer, the reason why people use the word queer for the queer community was because it meant weird. And so like for me, reclaiming that word has just kind of meant that like you defy those like rigid societal norms that society has set up for us, and that like you know just being unique, like being no matter you don't even have to put a label on it. It's just being you.
Being you, which might be different to some people, but it's being authentic and being you. I like that.
Yeah.
Well said. Thanks, Bug.
Thank you.
All right. All right, our next question needs some youth perspective. What's something teachers or staff often misunderstand about queer youth? Brody, would you like to start?
Yeah, I think something that I've personally noticed a lot with experiencing teachers and staff and how they deal with people who are queer and who, are youth is that they tend to see queer people and their experiences, how do you put, as a monolith. Like they will figure out a way in which they can help a specific queer person and their specific struggles. And then unfortunately, they take that as the end all be all of helping queer individuals. When a lot of people, like a lot of certain help and certain ways of assisting people won't work with other individuals simply just because they're under the same umbrella as being queer. I feel like teachers need to strive to have more specialized care for the individuals they take care of and not see queer people as the group that they're a part of, but the individual with their own struggles and their own needs.
Gotcha. So there might be certain struggles that you experience because you're queer, but you're still an individual, you're still a human being, and your struggles are going to be uniquely yours, and people should see that as you are.
Yeah, I also believe that sometimes it can be hard for people who aren't queer themselves to assist people who are queer because they don't have a lot of that perspective that they need in order to assist queer people with issues because they can't personally, they can't put themselves in their shoes, to put it like in phrasing, because
Yeah,
they have never experienced the same experiences that other people have. And that's why I think it's really important to hear queer people and their experiences and how they believe that things can be helped and dealt with because it adds another perspective.
for sure, absolutely. And just because I may learn one queer thing about somebody doesn't mean it applies to everybody else. Gotcha. Thank you. So, Eric, you're up next.
So, one thing that I would say to teachers and staff who are misunderstanding queer youth is that we're not walking stereotypes. I've had people say, "Oh, well, you're gay, so but you're not wearing a wig and wearing a dress." I'm like, "No, not all queer people wear wigs and dresses and sequin gowns. Not everyone wears flashy clothing or has to look slash act flamboyant in order to be queer. Um, it's really about the individual person and being ourselves, and everyone's journey is different. Um, and also, sometimes we'll have teachers who really want queer youth to fight for LGBTQ rights and be the spokesperson. But in my opinion, you should only go into that if you are truly passionate and you want to take that on. If you don't want to do that process, you don't have to. It's not your job, unless obviously you want to take it on and you want to get involved with that. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Just because you represent a certain community doesn't mean that it's all on you and your responsibility to champion um, or fight those battles. And if you're not prepared to, or you don't have the mental capacity to do so, then you're not expected to.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Eric. And Bug, what's something teachers or staff often
I
misunderstand?
I feel like a lot of teachers almost and like staff feel that being queer it's not that important, or that queer curriculum isn't that important, or like queer history isn't that important. When like it's it's a lot, although it's not, my entire identity and everything, it's just it is really important though. Things like gender neutral bathrooms and using the correct pronouns are important to me. I shouldn't have to, sign out a key every time I have to use a gender neutral bathroom at my school when it's like it's important for queer people to have, the safe spaces and the safe um like curriculum to learn about queer identities, not just for queer kids, but for like youth in general, people in general. Queer curriculum should be normalized. And I just wish teachers kind of understood that it's like it's a big part of my life
Yeah,
that
for
does
sure.
impact a lot.
Yeah, I agree with you. Uh, Queer language, queer history should be normalized for sure, because it's not something that's weird or different. It's a large part of our community and a large part of
Yeah,
who we
like we
are.
have
Perfect.
yeah, like we have days sorry, like we have Trans Day, Transgender Day of
No, keep going.
Visibility. Like those events exist and are there for super important reasons. But it feels like every awareness day, not even just for like queer awareness days, but just awareness days in general, people don't not people like teachers and staff. It feels like they're so brushed over. Even like when it was domestic violence against women awareness day, it was like people were making like we had staff making jokes about it, and it's like you can't do that. This is like awareness days are there for reasons that we need to like educate people on the societal hardships that come down upon people, like people in our communities that are more vulnerable than others. It's brutal. So yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Wow. Um, so yesterday was Trans Day of Visibility. Bug, did your school do anything?
So it
And
a
how
lot
did
of
that
it
go?
a lot of it falls upon the students, with with everything. Um, but it's really like you can do this, but like you're not gonna get any support for it. Like no one's going to, you know, we the announcements that play for it because we did in some interviews and stuff. They play tomorrow on the video announcements, and I know there's gonna be kids like snickering in the classrooms, and teachers aren't just they aren't trained to do anything about it, and so they don't. Because it's not just like a teacher problem; it's a system. It's what our school board is saying, what our school board is allowing these teachers to say or do, because our school board is kind of messed up. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's too bad. All right, Sammie, what about you? What do
I
you have to say about teachers and
definitely
staff?
I definitely agree with Bug, especially on the gender neutral bathrooms front. Like there is one like usable, accessible gender neutral bathroom at our school. And like even my friends who are girls are like, "Am I allowed to use that?" Like there's no real communication about it. So like even sometimes if you do like if people see you walking into the gender neutral bathroom, they'll make fun of you just because that's like an indicator that you're different.
Oh
And
man.
yeah. And on the teacher front, I haven't had too many bad interactions, but I feel like queer people were like kind of put into a different box. Like, well, that's like basic, but um, like teachers already have this kind of mentality, female students and male students. And then queer people, whether it be your gender identity or your sexuality, you're immediately put into a different, like, strange box, basically, from your teachers because they don't, a lot of them that I've dealt with don't really know how to deal with you when you're strange like that. And I've had some bad experiences like that. But
Oh dear. How, if you don't mind me asking, if it's too personal, let me know. How does that make you feel though? When
I,
teachers just kind of
well,
put you in the same box as everybody else?
high school in itself isn't like, a jolly old time, but it makes me feel kind of like discarded, like I'm not important enough to have a space in the classroom, basically.
Oh dear. Sorry to hear that, guys. Um, okay. Guess we can just hope that things change and get better for us. Um, all right, so a little lighter, but here's something that all of us need to know, and we can only have it from your perspective. What does queer youth allyship actually look like from your perspective? And it is Eric. Let's start with you this time.
Right. So for me, queer youth and allyship look like supporting each other not only within the LGBTQIA plus community, 2S community, and strengthening that within, but also we want to make sure we're partnering with other organizations that also help and support the community. I'm not quite sure about Canada, but in the United States, between grade 6th through 12th grade, we had programs like the GSA, which is the Gay Straight Alliance, or we had Equality Club, where our mission statement and our goal was to have the LGBTQIA plus community together, and we would have a faculty who is also a part of the community, and we would work together to try to educate and communicate with all these different other organizations within the school to help educate other people who may not have as much information about the community, using those proper pronouns, you know, potential mental health services, which again can be used by everybody, but also needing that. So really just making sure that that's being aware, but also working within other organizations within the community who also have more of those supports, because we want to make sure that people know about all the resources that are available to them.
Absolutely. It definitely gets tricky sharing that information and making sure everybody has access to what they need.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any kind of tips or suggestions of how people can access those resources, or what we should be doing to get the word out too?
So what we started doing, this was in high school. We started to go into different classes. Again, you do have to go in the States. You have to go to the school board, and you have to be very specific. You have to show them the presentation ahead of time, explain what you would talk about. But we had a PowerPoint that just explained, hey, you may have someone who has pronouns that are they, them. Here's how you use it in a sentence. The reason why we use they, them pronouns is to make sure that everyone feels included and welcome. If you're not going to use those pronouns, they're not going to feel like they belong in the classroom community. And obviously we don't want that. And so I personally like to take it one step at a time. You can use very small steps, simple solutions that raise awareness but don't overwhelm people, because and giving people who aren't as aware that time and that flexibility to to ask questions and to just be open to receiving that feedback, because again, if we have communication back and forth, people are still learning and people are still growing. So
for sure. I find people often are scared of the unknown, or just fearful of things that are different sometimes, and I can appreciate that it would take a lot of patience to take things slowly and make sure that you're leading people along. If you don't mind me asking, what kind of feedback did you get when you were in classrooms? Like, how did students give you, like, did people were receptive to it, or were they kind of like snickering, or?
So in New Hampshire, it's a very different vibe than Canada. I personally love Canada. It's much more inclusive than New Hampshire.
Okay.
New Hampshire is much more conservative, a lot more. We can be liberal at times, but in general, you have these pockets of society where they're just, nope, it's only this. So you do have to be tricky. It is tricky because you don't want to quote unquote offend people. You don't
Sure.
want to upset people's core beliefs, especially if it's different than your own. The way I phrased it is, this is just information. If someone is using pronouns, this is just how you're respectful with it. In my experience, there has been some snickering. Luckily, educators have put a stop to that, and they'd be like, hey, you need to be respectful of the group. They're talking, you're listening. It's very that. So again, that's where that piece of, if you don't want to be the one telling the information, you don't have to. It does take, in my experience, it does take a little bit of a thick skin. And again, it's not for everybody. So it's worthwhile, though. I remember I had a bunch of people afterwards saying thank you, and that they had friends who had recently come out to them, and they felt the strategies were helpful.
Oh, that's great.
So
that's good. Thank you for sharing that. This is a bit of a segue. Sammie, Bugg, and Brody, how do you feel, like Sammie and Bugg currently in high school, how do you feel that kind of like presentation would be received in your school? And Brody, how would it have been received in high school for you? Like, would that be something that'd be helpful?
I could
Well,
start.
oh,
Oh,
sorry.
sorry.
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah,
No, go
sorry.
ahead.
Sorry about that. I went to a very conservative high school, and I don't think that there certainly was a like pocket or a subsection of people who were openly queer, but those people were most certainly the group of people who were openly mocked and harassed and bullied more than any other group. There was no subsection of people, there was no protected class, I guess you could say, of individual that was harassed in my community, at least that I had witness to, either than queer individuals. And that did include in the classrooms. I unfortunately don't think that there would be a lot of progress in showing these type of presentations, just not because of that the information inside of them isn't important or isn't valid. It's more just about that the environment is already so unwelcoming that it can be hard to make a push for that to like for acceptance to begin when it's already so established that acceptance is not the status quo.
I really like a lot of your points, Brody. Especially on when it comes to like, that like you have to, our systems are so set up to, marginalize queer communities, or any minority for that matter, that bringing these new topics in, are like, sorry, I'm all over the place. A long time ago, with the stigma for a long time ago, queer stigma against queer people has always been really harsh, and it's even now it's still super harsh, and you can still see a lot of stigma through queer culture, yeah, especially in our school systems, because now kids are being brought up by their families and more conservative families to even more hate on queer communities. With all the shifts in America, uh, students and children are learning to become more hateful. It's like we're going back. And when it comes to um, and when it comes to you know transphobia in high school classes, you have to be careful with it, because if a teacher were to say, hey, you can't do that, they may say you're infringing on my rights. And it's like, is it your right to have hate speech in the classroom? And I would say it's more of a systemic I know that's my answer for everything, but it's more of a systemic change we have to make to destigmatize queer people and queer culture to allow change to happen in our schools, which is going to take a long, long time.
I definitely agree with the both of you. Like, I currently go to East Elgin, and the atmosphere there, it's a mix. There are like a lot of people who are conservative and like from farms, like from the country basically, who hold these like very similar views to each other. And then there's like the most of the queer people at my school are friends with each other because those are just the kinds of communities and friendships you have to make to like not exactly survive, but like to have a decent time there, to like build trust with people who are similar to you. Um and there's definitely a lot of people in the middle of that as well. Like I have friends who know everybody at the school. Who are like literally in the middle. They're friends with me and then they're friends with people who've lived out in the country their whole lives. Um and I feel like, well, yes, like presentations are very important. They hold a lot of important information. They would be great to the people who could accept that. But for a lot of people, especially people that I've met, it's like talking to a brick wall with it. Cuz when somebody is so set in their way, they're so resistant to change, it is very hard to get through that, very hard to break down like years of a certain mentality building up. And I feel like just as people, um, it's best to just be be willing to listen to other people, be willing to change.
Like
Yeah.
to mention, I did also go to East Elgin. You will make it through. I believe in you. You got this.
Yeah.
It is so much. I promise you, it is truly greener on the other side of the pasture.
Yeah.
I go to Fanshawe now, and the amount of like positive experiences I've had, not just with other queer people, but there is just so many different people. I see so many people that I had never seen before, and I never would get to see going to that small town high school. I think that once you get out of like there is, I just want everybody to know who is currently in high school or maybe hasn't even gone to high school yet that there are a lot of really, really good opportunities for you outside of high school. And if you're struggling during like your education, I think that it's really important for you to just for you to keep it in the back of your mind that things can and will get better. And there's just a lot for you outside of where you are right now.
Thank you, Brody. That offers some hope, I hope. Um, and I guess what I'm hearing from you guys is presentations like that would be helpful if they aren't mandatory for everybody. Um, we have to have some kind of buy-in first before you offer these presentations. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you very much. I didn't mean to get a sidetracked there. Did you want to add something else, Bug?
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, like, some people say that like the hardest debates you can have are with people who just don't want to listen, and it's true because you could bring the most factual evidence to right to their doorstep, and they just like wouldn't take it. They're just like, I'm not gonna believe this. You kind of have to realize that they're not going to listen, and it's going to take a lot more for them to realize that queer people have always been around. We have always been around. We're not going to go away if you add in more conversion camp. Like, I don't know if you heard the news, but like they're trying to unban conversion
Yeah,
camp in
yeah,
like Minnesota. I heard that today and I was like, queer people aren't going to go away when you do these
yeah.
things. When you criminalize queer people, they still
It's
persisted.
just,
Like through like it's having arguments, especially in, if we're talking about like politics. I'm not gonna get into politics, but it's like it's hard to get a side to listen when they don't want to, because they can just say, "Oh, I'm not gonna listen to that. I'm gonna turn off my headphones. I'm going to, turn the other way." I don't know. It's really
Yeah,
hard.
yeah, yeah. I get what you're saying. Makes sense. All right, so back to our question. What does queer youth allyship actually look like from your perspective? And Bug, you're up next.
Oh, hey.
Hey,
Sorry. I was gonna say for this question, I forgot that we were talking about this actually.
sorry.
Just no, you're good. This has been great. That just like speaking up about transphobia, because as kind of going back to what I was saying, people aren't going to listen until they have the consequences. If they do something that's messed up and then they get the consequences, they're more likely to listen because they have to face it the hard way, which is unfortunately how a lot of people learn. um and just speaking up and educating others, speak up for yourself if you feel. I know it's really scary and it's terrifying, even as someone who's even if you're willing to speak up about it, it's still like, even if your voice shakes, you still, you're really, there's no, what else are you supposed to do? And then you have to educate them and educate yourself, like continuously. The queer community and queer culture is consistently changing while staying the same as, queer history throughout the decades. We You have to kind of, educate yourself and be flexible with what's going on in queer culture, to be respectful and to just learn.
Absolutely. Thank you. Sammie, what about you? What should queer youth allyship actually look like?
Um, I think just like going back to what I kind of said earlier, like being like willing to accept criticism, like understanding we're all human, we all make mistakes, but it is our responsibility to learn and grow from those mistakes. Like understand where we went wrong, where we can improve, and like seeking sometimes you have to seek education, like help from other people. Um and also um basically like other people accepting you being queer without like making it your identifier, because that like lingering stereotype of like, oh, the queer best friend, the gay best friend, it's still around, it's still prevalent. It's happened to me where I'm just like, oh, the token gay friend in a group, and that being like all I am, I feel like that's not
It's a
allyship.
mic,
Like
yeah, it's a
it's like the
microaggression.
tiniest, yeah. Um, so yeah, just like being accepting criticism, willing to change, understanding.
Yeah, well said. And Brody, anything you'd like to add about uh,
Yeah,
youth allyship?
something I'd like to add is that kids aren't dumb. Doesn't matter how old they are. As soon as someone's able to speak and they're able to properly convey what's going on in their brain, they are able to advocate for themselves. And maybe not properly or maybe not in a way that's good, but they're able to advocate for themselves as soon as they're able to speak. And like I said, kids are not dumb. Like I feel like a lot of allyship towards youth and not even just queer youth in general, just youth as a whole could really benefit from listening more to what the kids say they need and what they believe that could like help them, and working with youth to help like come to better decisions and come to better choices, because they can have like, regardless of your age, you can have the capacity to know what you need. And it is certainly different for different people. Like a lot of people, I guess mature is the word, like mature at different rates, and they have different levels of like emotional maturity. And so it cannot be the same. It's obviously never going to be the same for each individual, but you need to listen to the person you're trying to help and what they think is needed as much as you need to look for external help to assist them.
Yeah. So youth need people to be open and honest. And it's what I think I hear you saying. And again, not look at stereotypes, but look more at the individual and what they need and how you can help them and speak with them. Yeah. Thank you everybody for sharing that. It's things to consider for myself in my job and my life. So thank you for sharing with that. I think it's also important to reiterate that you can't force people to learn things. You have to meet them where they're at and have conversations. So thank you. Here's something that we also need some perspective on. What are some challenges queer youth face that people might not realize? Bugg, we're going to start with you again.
I would say like some challenges that like I experienced specifically would be that there's, or not me specifically, the queer community in general, is there's just like for me, I find that there's a lack of good representation or representation that stays, not stays, like stays good representation actually, yeah. If you've heard the news, with The Last of Us, there's a trans character in The Last of Us, and for the show they casted a cis girl to play the character, the trans male character, and it's pretty frustrating because a lot of people found themselves in that character. I know nothing about The Last of Us. I've just seen the news. I apologize. Um, and so, like, as for myself, I came out when I was 10 years old. I was like a literal child. And so I saw myself a lot in other trans characters who were children, because I was. And so seeing that erasure of trans representation,
Erasure,
just queer representation, it really hurts. Or seeing like queer representation that is so like fetishized. A lot of queer media is made by straight women, and it's reinforced by that standard. Or like a lesbian content that is made by straight men. It's like it's so fetishized when it is a culture that is so diverse and beautiful. You cannot erase those characters. You cannot make them up to be just some sexual thing. You know, it's a lot more than that.
Yeah. What are you saying? It's important to have queer people at the table and include them in conversation
Yeah.
when creating.
Have queer people at the table and make
media. And actually in those
and
roles.
make queer representation. Yeah, and make queer people make good representation by queer people, like you said, like at the table. Let queer people at the table. Let them decide. Have their if you're going to make a queer character in a media and you yourself are not queer or of that identity, this goes for anything. Ask someone. I don't look online even. There's so many resources that we have at our fingertips to understand other people's perspectives of what it means to be queer or what it means to be anything at this point. If I like wanted to see the perspective of a welder, I could be like perspectives of welders and watch a video on some guy's perspective of welding. you know, listen to other people's perspectives, please. And then you can make a good character.
Yeah. We just want to see ourselves in these characters and have someone that we can actually relate to, rather than again just relying on stereotypes. Yeah, right on. Thank you, Sammie. Tell us that. What are some challenges queer youth face that we might not realize?
Okay, I could say a lot on this topic, but I'll try to keep it reasonably short.
Say a lot, friend. Tell us all about it.
Okay, my notes here. Um, Starting off, just like in general, being labeled as other because of our identities. And that's, been for all of time, but still it's constant. I don't know if it'll ever go away just cuz it's who we are. Um yeah.
Yeah.
And also this is more like towards trans people for this one generally, like harsher negativity like towards ourselves and our self-esteem because we are transgender or like transgender or you're like what's the word, sexuality, that's what I'm looking for, like especially stereotypes being pushed onto you. It's like another layer that just degrades your self-esteem because it's like more expectations for you to live up to. And so like these societal pressures just get harder with being queer. Um I feel like a lot of people just sort of like disregard that, like, oh, you're trans, it doesn't mean like you're any different from me, but it is like as a human being, we are just like different. We face different struggles. Um
Yeah, your
yeah.
experiences might be
Um
different.
yeah. And also not feeling, this kind of ties in with that, like not feeling safe to voice like issues that we might have with being transgender. Like in my transition, I have like things I've wanted to do. I've wanted to cut my hair, I've wanted to get piercings, I've wanted to try to fit these like expectations of what masculinity is. And all of like the steps I want to take in my transition are kind of tossed aside because they're like not as important as other things. And like um it's kind of like this. Like you have a good life, you have a good house, and then like you're upset over this. And I feel like that kind of ties in with like being a teenager. Like even if you have good things, you're just expected to be like okay all the time. Um with no real like care for your own like issues, what might be going on mentally, just because you're in like a good situation generally. Um and
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like most teenagers experience that, but also with being transgender, it's affected me definitely. Um and also something I brought up earlier, like systemic issues and stereotypes. Um and like the effects that those keep having on like queer people when, especially when they reach like teenagehood. Um it's like I've seen a lot of cisgender gay men, been friends with them, who feel like they have to fit into like society's idea of a gay man, like flamboyant, effeminate. Um like basically that, just be like the gay guy in a group of girls. Feel like that's their whole personality. That's what they have to live up to just because they're gay. And then like it's like I felt it too as a transgender guy, but it's definitely different because like for me, I've had to like build up my own idea of masculinity. Like I wasn't to raised with any sort of masculinity. I was raised feminine. And then like so that meant I had to build like my own masculinity from scratch, from like what my idea of masculinity was, and I basically had to make that for myself. And so that's like it's like I'm trying to live up to my own expectations and also the expectations of society as a man. Um
As
and
a,
then
as a thinking about oh,
yeah,
sorry.
can I say one more point? I try to keep
Absolutely.
okay.
No, keep going.
The things that might seem minuscule to other people, like straight people or cisgender people, can be like very large to transgender people or like gay people. Um, like names and pronouns, like even a slip up for like transgender people for me has ruined my whole day because like I understand people make mistakes, but in your head it's just like this kind of reiteration that you're different. Um and yeah, and just like, oh, it was just a mistake, like you shouldn't be upset about that. But to us it's like it's important. Like it means something. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I was going to ask you, but you kind of answered it anyway, but I'll ask the group. If I was wondering, if you felt like you had to kind of fit a mold,
Oh, for
and
sure.
you explained that, yeah, you do, but yeah,
I feel like there's a
you
lot
have
of,
certain criteria you have to hit.
yeah, like I feel like I've always, I don't know about other queer people, but I feel like there's always been this like subconscious internalized transphobia or internalized homophobia within like not just me but like other queer people I've talked to about this, where it's like if you know if I have to fit this mold to be queer, then kind of like you do too, kind of thing. And it's a like I feel like we talk a lot about homophobia and transphobia, but we really don't talk about the internalized part of it because it's like you work so hard to just be seen as a as as another person, like or not as another person, to be seen as you outside of your identity. Like that I feel like I've always had to kind of prove myself beyond my identity, that I'm smarter than my identity seems. Like when I tell people my accomplishments, I would gladly talk about my accomplishments as a queer person, saying all these volunteer experiences I've done, but because of the stigma, I feel like I can't, and I feel like I have to counteract that by saying other accomplishments I've done in other fields. And it's just it's this weird internalized transphobia where I constantly feel that self doubt that I can't be someone, that I can't be like someone else because I'm queer or because I'm trans. It's a constant battle. It's quite brutal.
Oh, sorry to hear that, Bug. Um, okay, so we'll go back to the original question. And Brody, we're up to you. What are some challenges queer youth face that people might not realize?
I think this goes for youth in general, but especially for queer youth, is queer youth struggle with having sort of like a third space or a space that's outside of directly that isn't home, school, or work, that is an area that they can feel comfortable in, an area they can feel like themselves and interact with other people. And I think these areas are very important, especially for queer individuals who maybe don't feel safe at home or don't feel safe at school or don't feel safe in any capacity of their life. It's very important for them to have an area or have some sort of support system where other people can help them and support them. And I think it's very important for communities and, other queer people to try to build up their own communities and support each other because we are struggling with maybe not the same issues, but we're all looking for the same thing, which is the acceptance and equality of queer people and other marginalized groups. So I feel like working together is especially very important. I also think that sometimes people unfortunately get into this situation of infighting where they seem to their span of the bigger picture kind of seems to shrink and shrink and shrink a little bit, and people argue about smaller, more minuscule issues that certainly matter. I'm not trying to deny the fact that those issues matter, but sometimes there's larger issues at hand that impact everybody that should be focused on before you can impact those smaller issues. Like if I don't feel safe going to school, I don't care how much art is on the wall that depicts like queer people or like that we drew
Okay.
pride flags on the wall if I don't feel safe to go to school in the first place. Like it has to start with it's like what's it the Maslow it's almost like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You have to start with your basics, you know, like I have to feel safe, I have to have a place where I can be, and then we can go to fixing these issues and then, you know, build up to more equitable opportunities for everybody.
Yeah, some self-actualization. And I hear what you're saying. Like, not we don't want to pay like just lip service. Like just yeah, put up a couple pictures, say the right things at the right time, and we're good. We're done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and those little issues, it's not like I said, it's not that they aren't important. Every issue facing the queer community is important. It's just we need if more individuals can get involved in the conversation because they feel safe to do so, then that increases everybody's ability to, you know, advocate for each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And Eric, what about you?
So
What
fair
are some
warning,
challenges queer youth
mine
face?
can be a tad dark, so bear with me on this one. So some of the challenges that queer youth can face include increased mental health concerns, higher suicide rates. Sometimes there could be a lack of parent and family support. Um, People not feeling a sense of belonging in school. Again, not having that community readily available, depending on what type of school environment you're around, being told it's just a phase, and you can feel alienated, and feeling shame or guilt about your sexuality based on the societal norms that are constantly being pushed, because you are quote unquote different, but obviously different. It's not a bad thing. Um, so really just, you know, something definitely teachers need to keep in mind to, look out for, and educators particularly.
Hmm. Yeah, like mental health first aid is almost like a new offering,
Mhm.
relatively speaking. Um, and I think more people need to be mindful of it and participate in mental health first aid training, especially
And it's
for queer
separate from
youth.
like first aid.
Yes, mental health is separate from first aid. I know,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I know
they
in the
should be
schools I was trained in,
together.
we should be together.
Yeah.
yeah. I'm gonna touch on something that Brody had mentioned, and I like the way you phrased it, Brody. You said uh, queer youth need to have a third space. Um, does anybody have any experience with third space or any suggestions of what that third space can look like? Like
I
how
do.
can the
I
community help
do.
queer people out? Yeah, Eric. Oh, Brug, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I didn't know. Sorry.
All right, let's go to Eric first and then we'll go to you, Bug. Is that okay?
Yeah, no worries.
It's
So,
okay.
that is the one thing that I have found here in Canada that's been really great is I've been able to find my community quite easily, through local outreach programs. I was able to um, I was able to connect with the mental health services over here at Fanshawe College, which have been really great. They've kind of pointed me in the right direction. Because I'm a lover of art and theater, I've gone to local art and theater programs and met other LGBTQ plus people, and so that's been really great. I think it really is just finding your people and having your own community. Um, I tend to hang out at my friends' places because they have a lot more welcoming queer spaces. Um, Sometimes I find that my own home isn't as quite as welcoming. So it's nice that I have friends who offer that space for me.
Perfect, thank you. Bug?
Um, a little bit of a promotion. I go to I've been going to queer club, and since it opened, it's been great. It's like those, especially as a kid, I was 14 when I first went to queer club, and it is it's like growing up with these other queer people has made my identity as a queer person flourish so much more, knowing that there are resources there, knowing that there's other queer people in my community, and especially seeing um, that there is there's like hope beyond, like there's hope beyond you turning 18. Like when I was younger, it was gonna get really dark. I was like, I don't even think I'm going to make it this long. And a lot of that was because I was queer. I was like, I'm either gonna get, like elementary school was really hard for me. I was like, I might get beaten up. I'm like, I was scared to die. And then now seeing queer adults, I can say other, I'm an adult now. Seeing other queer adults flourish and like have super successful jobs. Hello, Archie. That's Archie, right?
Sorry, that's Archie.
Yeah. um, but like going to Brody's points, Brody, I loved your points so much. I was having such a field day over here. You like when you were talking about like the intersectionality of issues that we need to follow, like I'm going to bring up a lot of my schoolwork because I'm in a world cultures class, but we talked about intersectional feminism, and it's like this one specifically on feminism, but it's that minorities work together, like they have to work together. You can't just be a feminist and only think about white women. If you're a feminist, you have to think about women with disabilities, people of color who are women, queer women. You have to think about these other perspectives, and you have to kind of, you cannot say, well, like a big problem with the I'm talking about the theorist. Oh, who was it? It was Angela Davis, I believe. She was saying like in the suffrage movement for women, there were one of the big problems with it was that they were saying, well, we're white women, we should be able to vote, but black men shouldn't, kind of thing. And it's like, no, everyone should be able to vote, and the different struggles should work together. And then when it comes to like, if I don't feel safe at school, I don't want to be seeing pride flags on the wall. That's another theorist. And it's like the politics of recognition theory, which happens a lot in indigenous cultures, where you're seeing, you know um like Canada's looking at, oh, we're going to talk about these awareness days, and we're going to talk about, we're going to make art installations, we're going to paint the rainbow crosswalks, and the we're going to raise the Every Child Matters flag and the pride flag. And it's like, those are so important. Don't get me wrong, those are fantastic resources, but it is not systemic change, and many people argue it's a way for our systems to stay intact, where they keep, you know, minorities minorities, and they keep everyone else not in those spaces. And it really sucks. Sorry, I kind of yapped there a lot. My bad.
Yeah, just kind of saying like, no, you're fine. So like painting crosswalks and having those flags, they're important, but it's kind of just being able to like, for systems and people in power to check those boxes and say, oh, but we did something for you. We are acknowledging
Yeah,
you. So, done. But it's not enough. Um,
Yeah, but I think the topic you touched on, Bug, it reminds me a lot of it's from World War II. There was a poem written by a German pastor, and it touches on the Holocaust for people who are a little sensitive to that topic. I can read it here. It says, first they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me. And I think that your point of the intersectionality and that every group of people matters makes so much, like it is so important because you can't be someone who advocates for something like queer rights without also being someone who advocates for the rights of women, for the rights of people of color, for the rights of people with disabilities, because all of these people are like they are all a part of the group of minorities, and they all need to work together in order to push for equality. And that's why it's so important for everybody of every different community to be involved in these discussions. And that's why it's so important for us to protect trans people, because trans people have been the forefront of the queer community, especially for the rights of the queer community for everyone and forever. And seeing a lot of other places, and even sometimes in Canada, a lot of this pushback against transgender individuals is so frustrating because transgender people and just queer people in general, and maybe people who don't go under certain labels, who just happen to be queer, have helped the community so much and will continue to help the community so much. And it's so important for everyone to have a voice in these conversations and for people to be able to look at these ideas as, it's an umbrella. It's not, there's never going to be a one size fits all solution to anything, especially issues that are this complex.
Absolutely well said, Brody. And thank you for bringing up that poem. It definitely um, resonates and emphasizes your points. Thank you. Did anybody else want to say anything about having a third space? Sammie or Eric, did you want to touch back on that?
No, I think we covered it pretty well.
Okay. I just didn't want to leave anybody out. So this question's a little more personal. What helps you stay resilient and hopeful? Like we touched on some dark topics and experiences. So what really helps you stay afloat? Sammie, what about you?
Mainly my friends and like Queer Club definitely. Uh I really like Tuesdays because of Queer Club, because I go get to see people who are similar to me, people who like me for me, people who are my some of my closest friends. Um and also like my goals for the future, kind of like I want to do co-op. I want to go to Humber College and like do 4 years there. Um and just like having those milestones set out for me, they help me stay resilient. They help me stay hopeful for the future, and like these own beliefs that I have that keep reminding me like it will all be okay. Like things are going to be okay.
Yay! Yeah, I think it's important to have something to look forward to and to kind of bring you back and center you. Yeah. Brody, what about you? What helps you stay resilient and hopeful?
I think I've had a very strong support group in my family, and it was a little bit of a struggle when I first came out with adjusting to the friendships and things like that that I've had with people before I came out and to after. And there was kind of an adjustment period between, some people sort of weren't okay with the things and the I wouldn't say the choices I made, because being gay is not a choice, right? I didn't choose to be who I am. I simply am, and they couldn't accept that. And that was hard, and it can be hard for a lot of people. But after looking on it like in the past tense, it's it's a good feeling because I don't want to spend my time. I don't want to associate with individuals who wouldn't accept me for the person who I am 100%. And I would never want to spend my time with someone who I didn't accept 100% for who they are. Like, obviously, you can have personal disagreements and things, but you should never give your time to someone who doesn't deserve it. And so being able to distance myself away from those people who didn't have my best interest in mind and then move towards and be able to find new friendships and new people and queer club and other experiences where you get to engage with other people in a way that isn't negative and you get to build real and truly like impactful relationships with other people. And like I said earlier, going to college was probably one of like the biggest boosts to my confidence I'd say I've ever had. The ability to just meet so many new people and have so many new experiences. And if you're willing to take them, the college will throw as many activities and as many experiences as you want. It like once you get out of that bubble of high school and stuff, there's a lot, like I said before, there's a lot to look forward to in your future, and there's a lot to yeah, there's just a lot to look forward to, and there's a lot more experiences once you're outside of the bubble of seeing the same people over and over and doing the same thing every day. And like I especially had that issue. I went to I can't even remember what my primary school was called. But it was right outside of Belmont, and then I went to Davenport and then East Elgin. So I was with roughly the same group of people for 8 years, if not more, of education. So being able to finally stretch out and just meet new people and have new experiences really gave me a lot of hope for the future. Because when you're in such a concentrated environment and then there's specific viewpoints in that concentrated environment, it can be hard not to see South Dorchester. Thank you. That's the primary school I went to. But when you're in an environment where there's sort of this bubble of preconceived ideas and those ideas are negative towards you, you kind of start to think that the whole world thinks like that. And then that's just kind of how it is. And once you push through that and get to a new community and a new experience that's more open, it's very impactful.
That's good news. Thank you for sharing that. Um, Something you kind of touched on, um, that I didn't really experience until I embraced my own queerness was chosen family. Um, and I think that's kind of what you were touching on is choosing the people in our lives that are supportive and love us for who we are, and how that can have a positive impact on your life. Thank you. Eric, what about you? What keeps you resilient and hopeful?
So, because I'm from the United States, I really love Canada. I find it much more accepting for LGBTQ plus people than the States. I come from a tiny town, about 800 people, and I was the only
Oh,
LGBT person
wow.
my age. So it's really great being in a city where there's people who are like me and people who are my age, and again, just having that supportive um, community where the LGBTQ plus community does have protections here in Canada, where right now in the United States they're fighting to take away those rights. So it really is great being here and getting to know the school system here in Canada, which is also better than the States as well, in my opinion, much more open and whole child centric as opposed to academics. So I'm hopeful that um, that I can be more myself here and more supported and just really build that community here. And so I really enjoy it. It keeps me hopeful.
That's good news. And that reminds me to check my own privilege of being a born Canadian, um, that things could be very different. And I should be grateful for the freedoms that we have up here. Bug, we haven't heard from you yet. What keeps you resilient and hopeful?
Well, everyone had like amazing points that I really related to, especially growing up in this bubble. Like I've always lived in St. Thomas, and especially being trans, it's like so many people. Like at my elementary school, everyone knew I was trans because they saw me coming out. They saw, not everyone, but like, they knew who I was before. And then in high school, it was like, it was new people, but there were still people from my elementary school that had still seen me, like before I came out, or like during my transition, those moments that were like, I wish I had a childhood gender neutrally. I wish I didn't have a super feminine childhood, because now it's like people will view me in my childhood as that. They'll say that person used to be a girl or whatever. And so, going to university, I'm super excited. I go in September. I've talked about it every single day. But it's like I'm so excited to get out of this bubble. I don't know anyone at Guelph besides the people I've already met while touring. But like, I'm just so excited to like get out of this bubble. As much as I love my community here, and it's great, and I've met amazing people and resources here that I will stay in contact with. It's just going there and having these people see me from a new perspective and from a different perspective, and just keeping your goals, making meaning of the things in your life, not just with activism and queer rights. That, like, I've done a lot of activism for queer rights, but taking that and putting it into your goals, using the like transferable skills to make more meaning to your life. The struggles you have in life are going to accelerate you in other aspects of your life. Like when you write a resume, sure, you did this job and you want to do this job, but you can use those skills to transfer them over to whatever job you want. And so, or whatever you're trying to do, whatever your goal is. And so my activism in queer rights has really given me the confidence and a lot of the resilience to, I want to be a vet. I want to help animals. Like, I want to help animals that, don't have a voice. That's the extra challenge of being a vet. They don't have a voice. They can't speak for themselves. Just like how when I was a kid, I didn't have that voice. I didn't have the representation of other trans people. I was like the only trans kid in my school at the time. I was in fifth grade, fourth grade, I can't remember. And it was terrifying. And if I had had the resources that I do now of queer adults and queer spaces, and knowing that I will succeed, and it would have made such a big difference. And I hope to be that for other people or animals, I guess. But I still want to do advocacy in queer spaces. So, and people too.
Yeah. So there's two things that you remind me of. One, like what I hear you saying is you want have to become the change you want to see in the world, right? You
Yes,
have
a beautiful
to,
quote.
yes. And the other thing you said that kind
Yeah,
of was making meaning.
yeah.
If you have to make choices and focus and choose things that are meaningful to you, and keep making choices that move you towards those goals. You can't just be
Mhm.
passive about it.
Yeah, and if you
It's
mind, I do have another point that I forgot to mention.
yeah,
Um, another thing that has helped me stay, this one's kind of 50-50 because it can be really difficult, but it has a lot of, it builds a lot in your character, is just advocating for yourself. I know we've mentioned it a lot, and I know how unbelievably difficult it is, but, when I told people that I was, getting top surgery or whatever, um, they would tell me that I was so lucky, and I would get like I don't it just didn't sit well with me, because it was like, I'm not lucky because I have spent years, of going to appointments and finding resources that didn't involve other people, that I could reach out and say, hey, I need help because no one's listening to me. I had to advocate for myself, and I feel like a lot of people don't understand that. It was like I was a kid having to figure out everything around me, and especially with my transition was something I didn't know anything about. I didn't even know the word trans when after I came out. I was like, I'm a boy, I want to be a boy. Um and it was like, well, I don't have those terms. I didn't have the terms. I just knew that there was something different about me, or something, that I didn't see before. And it's just, I think advocating for yourself, as hard as it is a way to combat these systems. And I think it's a great skill.
Absolutely. It's definitely a challenge to advocate for yourself. Sometimes you might not have the mental capacity or the mental health, be in a good healthy space to do so. But it's definitely something that queer people have to do. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. So we look at the time here. We have about 6 minutes, so we're just about out of time. But is there anything any of you four would like to say before we wrap up? Is there anything that's important to you, feeling we need to hear? Anyone?
I just wanted to say that I really appreciated getting to meet all of you and hearing your guys' stories. Um, it makes me hopeful for the next generation that you guys have the language, the awareness, the advocacy in you guys to talk about these openly, because I know when I was a kid, we did not have the language or the knowledge or mental health awareness to do any of what you guys are doing. So I want you guys to give yourself a round of applause, because you guys are really awesome. And you guys have the right attitude about it. And you guys are finding those resources for yourself. You're finding those communities. You're finding those little pockets, even though it's really stressful, and it's really it can be super upsetting when you feel like you're alone. You guys are finding each other, and you guys are helping each other through it, which I think is absolutely amazing. And again, really, really commendable.
I could
Thank
talk
you,
about this
Eric.
topic for
That's very kind of you to
hours
say.
on
Bugg?
just like queer rights. I love, like Eric was saying, I just the points everyone made, and just knowing that there's other people out there who have the same, feelings about advocacy as I do, and how important this is. Like, this is super important to me. I've made so many essays about queer rights just for school or for fun, and like my scholarship essays just on trying to tell people my struggles with being queer. And it's so important. Like, this advocacy is so important, and I think I'm really happy to meet everyone here. And if you're like, for those listening, or also other speakers, like, take your time. Queer rights are going to come at slowly, but I think that we can make a change.
Yeah. Sammie or Brody, anything you want to say before we finish up?
I'd just like to say thank you for the opportunity to get to speak and to talk about this type of stuff. I think it's very important that we have these type of discussions, especially in a way that is public and people can engage with. And yeah, I think I'm just glad we were able to have this conversation.
Perfect. Thank you. Sammie, anything you want to say, or are you good?
Just thank you guys, for this opportunity, for being able to just talk to people about this, to have intellectual discussions like this.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you. Because we're just about out of time here, so I'll wrap it up. I just want to say to our panel, Bugg, Sammie, Eric, and Brody, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for being brave. This can't be easy to be this vulnerable and be this personal about sharing your stories. And I really appreciate you coming on board and doing this with us. So thank you very much
We
for
love you,
that.
Ruthie. Yeah. We should so do
Thank
this in
you.
person one time. I just think this is so fun. We should do more of these,
All right.
because I
Thank you
love
for the
yapping.
feedback. We'll see what we can do.
Yay! Yay!
Hurrah! All right, well, thank you to the Gender Equality Coalition of Ontario for facilitating this discussion. Thank you to everybody who's joining us and watching and listening. I'm so glad everybody could participate and take part. Yeah, I think that's about it. So take care, everyone. Stay safe, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. We'll see what we can do about having more queer youth panels.
Yeah! Woo!
Bye.
Yay! Bye, guys.
Do we wait for everyone to leave? Do we leave now?
You can leave now, Bug. You let
That's
us
Okay, cool. I
talking.
didn't know if you wanted to be.
Hey,
Exactly what
Bug.
I was thinking. I'm like, I feel like
Yeah,
we
I
should.
was
Bug,
like,
you should stay for a minute. I just wanted to tell you how
Okay.
amazing you were.
Yes.
thank
Thank you
you.
so
Sorry.
much. You guys did such a great job.
This was so great. I was so excited.
Yeah.
I was really nervous at first. You could tell by how much I stuttered and was horrible.
You
But this was so
all
great.
did amazing. Like, I'm so freaking proud of you.
We got into our groove. We did it.
Yeah.
This was
You
so
did
great.
it.
I was so happy with your points, Brody. I was like, this ties back to everything I love.
I
There's so
know
much
it
I could
was
talk about.
perfect.
I was like, is this about intersectional feminism? I was like tying everything back together. It was beautiful. We got in a flow state. Sorry,
It
I'm
was
just yapping now.
perfect.
Bug, Amanda and I met and Ruthie met some people in Dorchester that were like talking so lovely about you. They're big fans.
In
Yeah.
Dorchester?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
I haven't had a chance
You're
to tell you yet.
famous.
You guys didn't tell me this. There's people in Dorchester that know me.
Well, we
I
didn't
don't
get a
know
chance
anyone
to
in
tell you
Dorchester.
yet,
You're
but we
going
want to
Oh
tell
my!
you.
I'm famous.
Inter-municipality out
I'm
here.
famous, guys.
Famous. Okay, I've listened to all of these presentations, so many of these presentations, and I just want to tell you, like, this was one of the best that I've ever heard. You were all outstanding. Thank you so much. Ruthie, you did such a good job. Bug,
Yeah.
Sammie, Brody, like every one of you. I felt like I wanted to cry. I was like, all the work that Danny and I do, this is the freaking reason because this was so amazing. Thank you so much.
I
Thank
agree.
you. It was so great. Also, like perfect timing. The day after, 2 days after, no, day after Transgender Day of Visibility. I was like, this is
Day after.
beautiful.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow.
It was beautiful.
Also,
Every
I
point
was
beautiful.
talking. It was gorgeous. I was talking about Keith Haring today, like the American artist who advocated for AIDS, raised awareness for AIDS, and I was crying this morning because of just how much his story was like beautiful and how like poetic it was. Brody, when you brought up that poem, I was literally getting chills, and I was like, oh my god, I gotta I gotta hold it together, guys.